It's your boy BT coming to you live and direct on Google Hangout. True School Sports in the building as always. Now, before I get into this video, what I really want to talk about in this video, let me just start off by making a bit of a minor announcement. I will be at the Chris Algieri Errol Spence fight in New York City. I'll be there for that. So fight week, at least the media workouts for sure. Still waiting to see if I get my press pass, but I know I'll be in New York that week for sure. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we get some good stuff. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about was a topic that I'm very passionate about because, when you look at the landscape of boxing, you look at who people are talking about right now. People are talking about Andre Ward coming off of his solid showing against Sullivan Barrera. They're talking about Sergey Kovalev and Gennady Golovkin being destructive forces. They're talking about a potential Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev matchup, which will determine who the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world is. And I'm hearing all these different names being thrown around, Terrence Crawford as well. And people are forgetting about someone who currently is pound-for-pound #1 in the world. And it's not Floyd Mayweather. As we all know, for the time being, he is retired, and the pound-for-pound #1 fighter comes in the form of a Nicaraguan flyweight named Roman Gonzalez. And you guys are out there, a lot of you guys, not just fans, but particularly a lot of you YouTube channels out there. You either #1 are ignoring Roman Gonzalez, or you just flat out don't know how to properly put this guy's career into context. So we're gonna go through a lot in this video. We're going to go through his resume. We're going to break it down because Roman Gonzalez is not like your average American fighter. He did not have the luxury of having a big-time promoter. He didn't have Top Rank. He didn't have Al Heyman from the get-go, nor did he have the platforms of fighting on big-time networks such as NBC or Showtime or CBS or HBO in the beginning. He had to fight his way into the limelight, and that's what he ultimately did. He did things the honest way, and I see a lot of you boxing channels out there, and we're going to get into those later in the video, so you stay tuned for that. But a lot of you boxing channels out there are always either not talking about him when it comes pound for pound, or you just when you bring his name up, you completely discredit him, and it just shows that you simply know nothing about his resume. So we're going to get into it, and yeah, a lot of things to talk about in this video. So first of all, when we talk about Roman Gonzalez, we talk about a guy that has an incredibly exciting style. He does fight aggressively, but he is intelligent in that manner. He's not just going out there lunging in, throwing a bunch of punches. He's out there, he's throwing punches, but he's slipping them as well, and he has good defensive boxing ability. That's a lot of people don't understand about Roman Gonzalez. So I wanted to start with breaking down his resume. We're gonna start first of all. Put this crap in the charger. We're gonna start off. Hold on. We're gonna start off with, breaking down when he won his first world title. Because as you guys may all well know, is that your career really doesn't start till you win that first world title, and then we really kind of find out who the fighter is from there. So Roman Gonzalez, he won his first world title at age 21. He went into Japan and he knocked out a fighter by the name of Yutaka Niita. Now, Yutaka Niita, that name is not really familiar to a lot of boxing fans, and I wouldn't expect it to. But Yutaka Niita is the guy that has been a multiple-time world champion at minimum weight, which is 105 pounds, which is Roman Gonzalez first started campaigning at. Yutaka Niita, at the time Roman Gonzalez fought him, had made 8 consecutive title defenses. So whether you know the guy or not, whether you know Yutaka Niita or you don't know Yutaka Niita had made a ton of title defenses, 8 title defenses. Any fighter who makes 8 title defenses is one worth respecting. Even a guy like Floyd Mayweather, who we'll get into also later in this video. So I mentioned that Roman beat Yutaka Niita. He was the first guy to ever knock the guy out, and on top of that, he retired Yutaka Niita at age 30. He retired and never fought again. Now, a little bit more about background on this guy that Roman Gonzalez beat in 2008 at the age of 21. He won this award that's given to Japanese athletes every year. It's called the Japan Pro Sports Grand Prize, which is like their Athlete of the Year award. A lot of guys in baseball have won that award. Guys like Ichiro and Hideki Matsui, Hideo Nomo, guys of that nature. He won the Lifetime Achievement Award, which was that award. And so obviously he's no slouch. If I'm telling you all this, 8 title defenses, won this award. Really never been stopped outside of Roman Gonzalez. So good fighter. If you go and watch the highlights, he was a game fighter, man, and he was not laying down for Roman. Kept coming forward. He kept staying aggressive. But you saw, if you go and watch the highlights, Roman was just too much for him. The skills were too much. The skill set was something that he had never seen before, that a lot of these flyweights who are good fighters never seen, because how many Roman Gonzalez's are there out there in the world? A guy who can box, punch, slip punches, just does a lot of things really well. So that was like the first win, big time win for Roman Gonzalez, and that was at 105 pounds. So following his win against Yutaka Nida, he beats Francisco Rosas. Now, he fought Rosas 2 times. He fought him once at minimum weight in 2009, where he won via majority decision. Then, when he wound up moving to light flyweight, he pretty much destroyed him and became the first guy to knock him out, and in his whole boxing career. And he knocked him out in the second round. So close fight the first time, second time, complete utter domination. And you look at a guy like Rosas, just a solid fighter, a guy that Roman was able to just go in there and just dominate. And you're going to see this theme as we go through this video, that there was a lot of guys, whether they were B-level fighters, C-level fighters, F-level fighters, whatever the case may be, Roman Gonzalez was usually the first guy to stop them. And we all know, a lot of fighters know, a lot of boxers know this, that when a guy has never been knocked out before, it takes just that much extra to knock them out, because they don't know how to hit the canvas, they don't know how to get knocked out. That's not in their mannerism, that's not in their mindset. They don't know how to get knocked out. So it's a little harder. Roman Gonzalez did it time and time again, which proves why he's a great fighter. Now, we look at oftentimes when we look at Roman Gonzalez, we look at him from an American perspective. Oh, well, he didn't fight this guy, he didn't fight that guy. He's fought some pretty good fighters, but he's coming from Nicaragua. He's coming from a country where there's third world poverty, where he doesn't have the luxury of a big time promoter, nor does he have the luxury of HBO or Ring Magazine. He didn't have Ring Magazine in the beginning, obviously. He didn't have Showtime. There was nobody anointing Roman Gonzalez in the beginning as some sort of savior of boxing, like we've seen with other guys such as Floyd Mayweather, Andre Ward, Roy Jones Jr., the guys of that nature who have great skills, for the most part exciting styles, but also the luxury of being in America. He didn't have the luxury of being in America, so he had to fight whatever was put in front of him. No excuses, no vacating, no A-side politics. It was just you fight who we put in front of you, and you got to win. And he had to do that a lot. So, yeah, I will admit, Roman Gonzalez does have a host of journeymen and a host of guys you would label as bums on his resume, but what fighter doesn't? So we're going to get into that part, partially into that part as we go on here. He stayed, all right, so 2011, he fights a guy named Manuel Vargas and beats him via unanimous decision in 2011. Manuel Vargas is whatever. Okay? Then he fights Omar Salado in 2011, beats him by 7th round TKO. Now, Salado was a 15-1 underdog. Not a bum, not a journeyman, but definitely a guy that was a good fighter. He was the number 8 ranked light flyweight in the world, the number 8 ranked 112 or 108 pound fighter, I should say, in the world. So he was no slouch, but Roman was able to get him out of there. So then, after he fights Omar Salado, he fights Omar Soto. Similar names, but Omar Soto was coming off a 3-fight win streak, hadn't really beat anybody in those wins. His opponents had a combined record of 49 wins, 35 losses, and 5 draws. So he hadn't really proved himself against proven guys at light flyweight. So really just another stay busy fight for Roman Gonzalez. Destroys him, beats him in 2011. Then he moves on to another guy who was a top 10 light flyweight at that time. He fights a guy named Manuel Jimenez and knocks him out. Knocks him out in the first round in 2012. And actually, wait, hold on. I'm a bullet point ahead. He didn't fight Manuel Jimenez. He fought. Where is it at? He fought. Where is it at? Okay, so yeah, he fought Manuel Jimenez. Manuel Jimenez, you know, your traditional Mexican tough fighter, but really not a special talent. Beats him pretty convincingly in the first round KO, and it's basically a stay busy fight. Then following that, he fights Ramon Garcia. Now, Ramon Garcia, he knocks him out in 4 rounds in 2012. Ramon Garcia, like a couple other guys I just mentioned, had never been knocked out in his career. Roman knocks him out. And at that point in time, he was also like, just like Omar Salado, he was also a top 10 ranked light flyweight at that time. So, like I said, we're not even really to the meat of where I'm going with this, but Roman Gonzalez beat some good fighters. He beat a couple of top 10 guys. It gets better as his career moves forward, obviously, and he gets more opportunities and more exposure. So after he beats Ramon Garcia, he has basically a fight with a guy who was undefeated at the time, but if you look at the guys he fought, he really fought nobody. And I'm talking about when he fought the Colombian guy named Steven Monterosa. He was like 9-0-2 at the time, and he was a Colombian guy. Roman just ran through him. So there's that. Then the biggest fight of Roman Gonzalez's career happened. Now, before I get into this fight, let me just say that at the time, the guy he fought was virtually unknown, but now he's known as a fringe pound-for-pound fighter and a guy with definite pound-for-pound skills. And that I'm talking about when he fought Juan Francisco Estrada. Now, Estrada is a guy that you got to respect, and you got to respect him for a couple of reasons. Estrada, like I said, has pound-for-pound skills, can change angles very well, can punch, you know, with both hands. Is really fast, you know, just a very skilled fighter. Skill for skill, he can almost match Roman, but he gave Roman the toughest fight of his career at that point in time. Even now to date, he's given Roman the toughest fight of his career so far. But you got to respect him because he moved down from 112 to fight Roman Gonzalez at 108. So he moves down from flyweight to light flyweight to fight Gonzalez for a shot at the title. So you always know that when you do actually cut weight, it can take something out of you, and you got to respect that. Anybody who goes down and fights somebody, respect them, because it's not easy. And he put up a hell of a performance. I mean, some people thought he won. It was that close of a fight. It really could have won either way. But you look at Estrada now. Estrada now is what, 20? He's 25 years old. He's the #1 ranked flyweight, you know, #1 contender, I should say, by Ring Magazine. Roman Gonzalez is the ring champion, the lineal champion, and Estrada has won. So we might just get that fight later down the road. I know a lot of people want to see that fight since losing to Roman back then, which was 2013, I believe. He's won 7 straight fights, 4 of them by knockout, you know, and he's knocked out guys like, you know, Giovanni Segura, I believe. I think he knocked out Giovanni Segura. If you guys know Giovanni Segura, that's a guy that at flyweight is the equivalent of like a, I don't want to say Gennady Golovkin. He's not Gennady Golovkin, but he's a guy who's a really hard puncher at that weight. A guy whose knockout percentage is like 76%, and to beat that type of fighter at that weight, it shows the growth of Estrada. Also beat Brian Viloria, who's for many years has been a mainstay at the top of flyweight. So Estrada's come a long way, and I know a lot of people want to see that fight. That is a mega fight. So if they do fight again, you know, I hope HBO is smart enough to put that fight on a card, not as a co-main event, but the main event itself, because the first fight was phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you go watch it. So after that great fight against Estrada, he goes on to fight. There's 4 fights. He fights basically 3 journeymen, okay, which is Ronald Barrera, Oscar Blanquet, or I should say, no, 4 of his next 5 fights, I should say. He fought Ronald Barrera, Oscar Blanquet, Juan Cantun, and Juan Purisima. He fights them in between the time period of May 2013 to April of 2014. He knocks all those journeymen out. Just no controversy. Beats them all. There's no controversy at all. But the one guy he did beat in that time span that wasn't a journeyman was a guy by the name of Francisco Rodriguez, who he TKO'd in 2013. Rodriguez would go on to become the minimum weight world champion just 3 fights later. And, so clearly that guy wasn't a bum. So now we're going to get into the more recent times. We're getting into about like 2014 now. And this is when I would say Roman Gonzalez began to enter the consciousness of most of the hardcore boxing fans. Because his notoriety is in stages. This fight right here against, and I know it was like a fight that was in Japan, so I'm not sure how many people in the YTBC really watched the fight live, because I know I didn't even watch the fight live, but I've seen the highlights, of course, and I've watched the full fight. He fought Akira Yagashi in 2014, and he stopped him in the 9th round to become the flyweight champion of the world, the WBC flyweight champion of the world. That was 2014. Now, for those of you who don't know much about Akira Yagashi, at that time he was the lineal flyweight champion. That's how beating him is how Roman Gonzalez himself became the lineal flyweight champion. And Yagashi, prior to that fight, had made 3 successful title defenses, had never been knocked out until he fought Roman Gonzalez. You guys not see the theme here. Roman Gonzalez is knocking out guys who have never been knocked out before. So I'm just telling you guys. All right. So after he beats Yagashi, he fights 2 journeymen. One at the end of 2014, and then one in early 2015. He fights Rocky Fuentes and Valentin Leon. Destroys those 2 guys. Okay, and that's the setup for what we're going to get to next, which is last summer when Roman Gonzalez officially enters the consciousness of the American public as he made his HBO debut versus Edgar Sosa. Now, people following that fight, if you guys don't know, he destroys Edgar Sosa. He knocks him out in the 2nd round. People then go on to say after the fight, well, this Roman Gonzalez looks good, but Edgar Sosa, I mean, he's a bum. Edgar Sosa does this. Edgar Sosa does that. If you look at the facts on Edgar Sosa, he's far from a bum. It's just Roman Gonzalez is on another level compared to pretty much anybody around his weight right now. Yeah, outside of Estrada. Estrada's the only guy that gives this guy a good fight. And Edgar Sosa, to this day, right now, I was making this video on April 4th, 2016. Edgar Sosa is the number 6 rated flyweight in the world by Ring Magazine. So definitely not a scrub. Definitely a guy that was a worthy opponent, maybe a little overmatched. But for people who downgraded Edgar Sosa because nobody could understand the hype around Gonzalez because nobody probably had done their homework. They didn't do the homework on Roman Gonzalez. So Sosa, for those of you who don't know, from 2012 to 2015, Sosa only had 2 losses. Okay, he only had 2 losses from 2012 to 2015 in a 3-year span. His only losses were Roman, of course, and then the guy I mentioned earlier who was the lineal champion, which is Akira Yagashi. And, he beat Giovanni Segarra. Giovanni Segarra, one of the hardest punchers at flyweight. So Edgar Sosa, guy who's a top 10, fringe, almost top 5 flyweight, guy who's definitely proved himself at that weight, just got obliterated by Roman Gonzalez. Obliterated. So, then after he fights Edgar Sosa, his next fight was his most recent fight, which was on the undercard of Golovkin versus Lemieux, which was at Madison Square Garden. He fights Brian Viloria. Now, Brian Viloria, people want to downgrade him. Maybe he's a little old, maybe a bit past his prime, but still a very worthy opponent. A guy that, has proven himself. A guy that I don't understand why people like, and I'm going to say his name. I'm going to be saying his name later in this video, so you stay tuned for that. But a guy like Dante from Dante's Boxing Nation has the audacity to say that Roman Gonzalez can't become a pound-for-pound fighter fighting guys like Brian Viloria, but Andre Ward can become a pound-for-pound fighter fighting guys like Paul Smith and Sullivan Barrera. Are you serious? I mean, we'll get into that later. But Brian Valoria, a top, another guy who's a top like 5 ranked flyweight by Ring Magazine. I mean, this is all public information, guys. Yeah, I'm not making this up. I'm just giving you the facts how they are. He is a top 5 rated flyweight, and people say Valoria. I remember after the fight when Roman Gonzalez dominated him, people had the audacity to say that Valoria was garbage and Valoria wasn't a worthy opponent. I mean, when we talk about Valoria, a guy who did get stopped in the 9th round by Roman Gonzalez, when we talk about Valoria, we're talking about a guy that from 2010 to 2015 had 11 fights. He had 11 fights in a 5-year span, okay? Let's get that straight. In those 11 fights, he won 10 of them. He won 10 of them. His only loss was to Roman Gonzalez. His only loss was to the best fighter at his weight, best fighter in boxing, the #1 rated fighter in boxing. There's no shame in that. He won 10-1 with 7 fights. Okay. Oh, that's before fighting Roman. So he lost to crap. I forgot who he lost to, but he was 10-1 before he fought Roman. So either way, no matter how you cut it, the dude's been putting in work for the last couple of years, and his only loss was to Juan Francisco Estrada. Okay, and that's obviously the guy that's rated #1 outside of Roman, who is the lineal champion. So outside of Estrada and Gonzalez, based on that, you would say that Valoria is probably the 3rd best fighter at flyweight, and he is. So you can't say he's a nobody. You can't say that he can't become a pound-for-pound guy by not beating top guys in his weight class, because that's what Valoria is, a top guy in his weight class. And if you watch that fight, I know Roman Gonzalez pretty much dominated most of it, okay? But later in that fight, Valoria did hurt Roman Gonzalez. Let's not get that straight. Roman had to stay composed, and Valoria had him. Now I'm not going to say had him, he had him, but he had him stunned. There was a point. You can go back and watch it yourself. He stuns Roman Gonzalez in around the 8th round, or maybe it was even that same 9th round where he got knocked out. He stuns him, and Roman had to be very smart. He had lost his legs for just a little bit, and he had to recover, but I digress. He beat Valoria. So before I get into his next fight, his accomplishments, and other things, he beat at 105. He beat what was the guy's name? I don't even remember his name right now. The Japanese who beat. Okay, so Yutaka Nida, who was basically, a guy who had 8 title defenses, a guy that was a proven commodity at minimum weight, beat him there, moves up to 108, beats the likes of an Estrada, Francisco Rosas, just guys who are either top of the division or top 10. He's beating top 10 guys. Then he's moving up to flyweight. He's beating Edgar Sosa. He's beating Brian Valoria. He beat Estrada, who's a natural flyweight. So he's beating Akira Yagashi. He also beat, who was a lineal champion. So he beat a guy, and he's beat lineal champions, top 10 guys, top 3 guys, #1 guys. He's beat a ton of guys. In fact, he's beaten 3 guys in the top 10 right now, currently ranked by Ring Magazine in the top 10. That being Brian Valoria, Edgar Sosa, and Juan Francisco Estrada. So I did the research earlier. He's beaten the most guys currently in the top 10 at his weight class. More so than Golovkin, more so than Andre Ward, more so than Kovalev, more so than Terence Crawford. I mean, if you can't respect that, I mean, if that's not reason to at least give him that crown of being pound #1, I don't know what is, because he's only so big. People don't understand that Roman Gonzalez, because some people think he started as a flyweight, and he didn't start as a flyweight. He started at minimum weight, which is 105 pounds. This is the 3rd weight class that Gonzalez is dominating. All right, dominating. Okay, and we're gonna get into that as we continue to move on through this video, so don't you worry about that. He's got a fight coming up April 23rd on the undercard of Golovkin Wade. I'll be watching that, of course. He'll be fighting Puerto Rican flyweight McWilliams Arroyo, 16-2. Arroyo is ranked #8 by Ring Magazine in the flyweight division. He has never, ever been knocked out. So if he is to beat McWilliams Arroyo and do it in impressive fashion, that will be the 4th, count it, the 4th top 10 ranked fighter by a Ring magazine that Roman Gonzalez has defeated. And that would mean that he's cleared out nearly half of his weight class. Now, you tell me who's doing it like that right now. Who's clearing out the weight class and dominating at any weight class like Roman Gonzalez is doing right now? Because I really don't see anybody doing that like Roman. And that's just facts. I'm a big fan of the guy, but that's just facts. I mean, when we talk about Roman Gonzalez, we're talking about a guy that, because a lot of you guys, a lot of you YouTube channels out there, you know who you are. You have an agenda, all right? You have an agenda you need to fulfill, and you have, you know, that's how you make your AdSense money. So that's how your channel was built. That's, you know, what your foundation is built upon. Then, you know, to each his own. But you guys talk about Andre Ward and Floyd Mayweather. You guys say, well, Andre Ward hasn't lost a fight since he was 12 years old. Floyd Mayweather hasn't lost a fight since the Olympics. Well, guess what? Roman Gonzalez has never lost a fight, period. Period. Never lost a fight. He didn't lose as amateur, and he hasn't lost as a pro. And if you need to do some math, get your calculators out, because he was 88-0 as an amateur. He's 44-0 as a pro right now. That means he's 132-0 combined as an amateur and pro. So I mean, you guys talk about like these other guys like they really did something. Well, they got multiple losses. This dude never lost. His whole boxing career never lost a fight. So you chew on that one for a second. Now, I want to talk about something now with Roman Gonzalez that nobody seems to talk about. I haven't heard the media talk about it. I haven't seen an article talk about it, and I haven't seen a YouTube video about it. So maybe if there is one, you can point me in the direction of it. But until then, you know, I'll have to bring it up because nobody else has brought it up. So let me just drink this Coke real quick. Roman Gonzalez, for most of you who have been following boxing, who know just a little bit about his background, he was trained by the legendary Alexis Arguello. Now, if you guys don't remember Alexis Arguello, he comes from that 15-round era of fighting, fought the likes of undisputed champions like Ruben Olivares, Ray Mancini, who's in the Hall of Fame, just good, really good fighters, man. And who fought Aaron Pryor 2 times, didn't win any of those fights, but you know, at that time was had won a world title in three weight classes in the era of 15-round fighting. Just a hell of a talent, and you know, pound for pound wise, one of the best that ever did it. And Roman trained and learned under this guy. Now, I told you guys that in 2008, Roman Gonzalez won his he won a world title at age 21, and in 2009, Alexis Arguello passed away. Now, some people say it was suicide. Some people say that he got killed for other reasons. But regardless of the fact, he did, you know, pass away. So after Roman Gonzalez, in the midst of Roman Gonzalez's first world title run at minimum weight, Alexis Arguello wasn't there. Now, a lot of you guys who are heavyweight boxing fans, a lot of you Mike Tyson fans out there, you guys always say things like, well, if Mike Tyson had custom model, it would have been a different story. Or you say things like, if Mike Tyson still had custom model, you know, or his Mike Tyson's discipline died when custom model died, Mike Tyson was never the same without custom model. Well, guess what? Roman Gonzalez, in many ways, faced those same exact problems when Alexis Arguello passed away. But guess what? It shows the discipline, it shows the mental fortitude, and it shows the skill that Roman Gonzalez had to overcome losing his mentor, losing a guy that had been in his corner, raised him up, you know, basically had become in many ways a father figure in the world of boxing to him. He lost him abruptly, all right? And he was still able to win despite not having Arguello, despite, you know, being in third world poverty. This guy was able to beat the odds and still win, and you got to respect that. So, you know, hey, I know a lot of you guys out there always love to use the Mike Tyson reference, well, but people know Arguello is dead, but they never link that to Roman Gonzalez. You know, when he was a world champion, he had just won a world title, then he loses his mentor in boxing. I mean, to overcome that is tough, and he was able to do it. So you got to really tip your cap to him, because we saw how Mike Tyson imploded after D'Amato was passed away. Now, where we're at right now in Roman Gonzalez's career, where we're at right now in his career is, he's conquered 3 weight classes. He has conquered 3 weight classes. He's defended every title he's ever won, whether it was at minimum weight, light flyweight, or flyweight. He's defended his title at least bare minimum 3 times. 3 times. He's made 3 title defenses at every weight classes he's been at before he moved up. He made 3 at minimum weight, 5 at light flyweight, and he's made I believe 3 so far at he's made 3 so far at flyweight. So the guy is not just a guy who gets the title and jumps up to different weight classes. This is a guy who gets his title, he keeps it, and he defends it. So you gotta respect him for that. But where we're at right now, where Roman Gonzalez's career is at, he's conquered and he's dominated 3 weight classes already, which is really hard to do in boxing. It's tough to do, and I don't think people realize that. They think he started off at 112 as a flyweight, when in actuality he started off at minimum weight, and flyweight is his 3rd weight class, and which is why when you hear guys like Dante say things like he's got to move up X amount of pounds and be like Pacquiao. It just shows how uneducated some boxing fans are, that they don't even know that this is his 3rd weight class. This is his 3rd weight class. So, when Arguello moved up to his 4th weight class, he was a champion. He was a champion in at featherweight, super featherweight, and he wanted to, when he moved up to that 4th weight class to fight Aaron Pryor, he wanted to become the first fighter to win a world title in 4 weight classes, and he ultimately didn't get the job done. It was a bit of a controversial fight. I know there was the water bottle incident, where they had Aaron Pryor and his team had a black bottle, and nobody knows what was in it, but as soon as he drank whatever was in it, he just looked like a new fighter. So, he didn't win it, but Roman Gonzalez is kind of at that same stage. He's dominated 3 weight classes. He's still dominating. He's dominating his 3rd weight class right now, and people want to see him move up to that 4 weight class. That's where all the big money fights are for him. And there's one fight in particular at 115 that I feel he needs to make, and I feel he will make, because they have the same promoter, which is they're both under Tekken Promotions, which is a Japanese company, and the guy I want to fight is a Japanese fighter, and I'm talking about Naoya Inoue or Inoue. I don't know how to say his name, but the Japanese guy at 115, he's 9-0 with 8 KOs, devastating puncher, younger than Roman Gonzalez. People think that this is the guy to beat Roman. I've seen some footage on him. I think he's a hell of a puncher, but against a guy the caliber of Roman Gonzalez, not having the experience, not having been through like the wars and having the experience to beat him, I just don't see how he has more than a puncher's chance against Roman Gonzalez. Now, I could be dead wrong, but either way, I want to see that fight for Roman. This is a guy that is bigger than a lot of guys he's fought, a guy who's a better puncher than a lot of guys he's fought, and someone who's definitely a worthy opponent, undefeated, devastating puncher, and could give Roman a tough fight. And that's where he's at right now. He's conquering this 3rd weight class. He's dominating all the flyweights, but people want to see him fight the Yamanakas and especially the Inuyes of the world. So 115, I feel, is the next move for him. But all right, so now we're gonna get into the interesting parts, okay? Because a lot of these channels, and I'm just gonna name a couple. Man, when I name these channels, I know you guys might want to sending this video to them. So if you do, I'll put some of the names out there. I am a fan of some of them, not all of them, but some of them. I respect everybody's grind. Dante's Boxing Nation, Northwest Boxing, Boxing Ego. Well, not Boxing Ego so much. He's given Roman his proper due, but more so Dante's Boxing Nation. Not even Northwest Boxing. I like Northwest. I love Northwest Boxing. That guy puts in work, and he's dedicated to his craft. So I can't say much about Northwest Boxing, but really it's just Dante's Boxing Nation. And Dante's Boxing Nation always is so quick to he will belittle any fighter, whether it's Kovalev, Gennady Golovkin, or Roman Gonzalez, to hype up an Andre Ward or a Floyd Mayweather. We know the agenda he's setting on that channel. That doesn't mean he's not getting good content, because he is. He just does some good interviews. He has some good behind-the-scenes stuff. So I don't want to take nothing away from him. He's on his grind. So shout out to Dante's Boxing Nation. Respect the grind, but I don't necessarily respect all his opinions on boxing. Now, I'll get into that later. But the reason I bring him up is because I'm gonna talk about Floyd Mayweather, and I'm gonna mention Andre Ward a little bit too. And I want to bring it back to Roman Gonzalez. Now, Floyd Mayweather is always talking about how he dominated so many weight classes, and when you look at his run at 130 and 135, he was able to dominate those particular weight classes. But once he got to 140 and 147, he became the quintessential paper champion. He would either duck fighters to fight lesser opposition, he would vacate his belt and move up to avoid hard fights, or he would simply just wait for guys to be past their prime. Simple as that. Now, when we talk about Floyd Mayweather, we're talking about a guy who's won a world title in, I believe, 5 different weight classes. And when he was 28 years old, he won his 3rd world title, and that was when he beat Arturo Gatti for the super lightweight title. I think it was the WBC super lightweight title. That fight where he just destroyed Arturo Gatti. He was 28. That was in 2005. Now, after he won that fight, okay, we'll get into that later. The reason I even bring this up in the first place is because Roman Gonzalez won his 3rd world title at age 27. He did it a year before Floyd. Wrap your brain around that. He won his 3rd world title before Floyd Mayweather. Okay, a year before Floyd Mayweather. Floyd did it at 28. Roman did it at 27. The distinct difference between Roman and Floyd is that when Roman won his 3rd world title at 27, he still had time, and he still defended it a couple of times. When Floyd won his 3rd world title, he vacated it immediately, and he went on to go fight the likes of Sean Bay Mitchell and Zab Judah, who I believe was just coming off a loss to Carlos Baldomir. So it's not like Mayweather vacated the title and went up to go fight, Cotto or, Pacquiao, or not Pacquiao, but Cotto and top guys at 140 at that time. So Roman Gonzalez, man, he gets a lot of criticism because promoters don't really promote certain fighters that they might not know, so people don't want to go do their own research, and they don't realize that Roman Gonzalez beat guys who made 8 title defenses in a row, guys who are lineal champions, guys who are ranked number 1 in the weight class, number 4 in the weight class, number 6 in the weight class, So people just don't understand that. People haven't done their own research to find that out for themselves. But when you look at Roman Gonzalez, you guys, all right, so you guys say that a lot of you guys out there who act like he doesn't exist, or when you do act like he does exist, you discredit his resume because you're not familiar with too many of the names on his resume. You say that he hasn't fought nobody, which in the cases of some of his fights, it holds to be true. There's some fights where he is fighting nobodies, but it's different. It's different because, like I said before, he didn't have the luxury of having a big time promoter, nor did he have HBO, Showtime, NBC, or none of these big time networks. He had to get his name out there, so he had to fight wherever they put in front of him. If he doesn't fight whoever they put in front of him, he can't get his name out there, and he can't move up in the ranks. So that's what it is. And when we look at a guy like Floyd Mayweather, he struggled with a couple of guys. He struggled with Emmanuel Augustus, who, while Emmanuel Augustus is a better fighter than people give him credit for, at the end of the day, still a journeyman. Still a journeyman fighter who didn't have a whole lot of power. Okay, he didn't have a whole lot of power. Good boxing skills, good movement, but didn't have a whole lot of power, and he was a good journeyman. He wasn't a crappy journeyman. He was a journeyman with really good skills, but still a journeyman. Floyd struggled with him, beat him, eventually outclassed him, but struggled with him. Andre Ward, we look at Andre Ward, a guy that people are just so quick to put on a pound for pound list when Andre Ward, he hasn't beat anybody since like 2012. He fought Paul Smith and Sullivan Barrera, okay, in his return so far. 2 tune-ups, okay? And he got knocked down by Darnell Boone, Darnell Boone, obviously a tough journeyman, but still a guy that is he's known as a light puncher. And he was put on the canvas by Darnell Boone. Now, Roman Gonzalez has fought his fair share of journeymen, but never, okay? Roman has not been to the canvas. Not to my knowledge, at least. Roman has not been to the canvas. So with that being said, he's never, or if he has been in the canvas, because I honestly didn't research that part, but if he has been to the canvas, he's still outside of his Estrada fight. There weren't more than 20 fights that were close. So it really was. He blew up pretty much anybody he put in front of him, and that shows the mark of a great fighter when you're just going out there and you're dominating whoever is in front of you, whether they're pound for pound fighters or they're bumps. So just wanted to throw that out there. Now, I mentioned that he didn't have A-side advantages. When we look at Mayweather, Mayweather, maybe in the beginning of his career, he wasn't afforded all of the A-side advantages come like in his top-ranked days, his Pretty Boy Floyd days, when he actually was a dominant champion. I give him his credit. 130 and 135, he was a dominant champion. When he was fighting Corrales and he was fighting, the Janero Hernandez's of the world, he was a dominant champion. But come 2005, when he fought Gotti and he vacated the belt to go to WBC super lightweight belt, to go move up to 147, to go fight Sharambe Mitchell and I think it was Zab Judah's first two fights, not really a true champion in those weight classes. So he had, from that point on, when he beat De La Hoya, when Floyd went to go beat Oscar De La Hoya, he was afforded all the A-side advantages, picking the judges, picking the location, picking a lot of these things that we in boxing criticize him for, okay? And because he had so much control, it's delayed a lot of the big fights we wanted to see. We wanted to see Floyd versus Cotto a lot earlier. We sure as hell wanted to see Floyd versus Pacquiao a lot earlier. And even though Floyd did on paper beat Manny Pacquiao, that was a closer fight, and the judges ruled it. But I say this to say that even with 44 wins and 38 knockouts under his belt, Roman Gonzalez does not have any A-side advantages. He doesn't. Okay, he does not. I mean, maybe now that he's with HBO and there's some money being put behind him, he might have a couple of A-side advantages, but at the end of the day, Roman Gonzalez is still that same fighter from Nicaragua fighting for a country, much like Pacquiao has to do for the Philippines, and he's really just fighting to make a name for himself in the sport of boxing. When I look at Roman Gonzalez, the one guy that comes to mind, because it's a very similar case. It's a very, very similar case. I look at Roman Gonzalez and I reminisce about a guy like Ricardo Lopez. Now, Ricardo Lopez was before my time, really. But the internet is around. Luckily, we can go back and research these things and watch his fights and listen to how people talk about him, how great he was. Ricardo Lopez retired undefeated. He was 51-0-1, and he won titles at 105 and 108, same weight class Roman Gonzalez is currently fighting at, and was a dominant champion in those weight classes. But you don't hear Ricardo Lopez's name being mentioned with the all-time greats, and I'm sure back then he wasn't really appreciated like he should have been. We hear Floyd Mayweather, he's supposed to come back and break some sort of record. That's really, to me, not a record because, Rocky Marciano, yeah, he retired 49-0, but Rocky Marciano didn't retire on his own terms 49-0. He retired because of an injury, and most people leave that part out. But that, to me, that's not even a record. The record to me is Ricardo Lopez, 51-0. Okay, Ricardo Lopez went 51-0 and won. He had one draw, but people never talk about Ricardo Lopez, and this guy was a hell of a fighter. Just a hell of a fighter. Anybody who knows boxing knows that. And not just that, not just his record at 51-0-1, but think about a guy like Sugar Ray Robinson, a guy that won 91 straight fights in a row. Nobody ever talks about that. So I look at Gonzalez, and I'm really hoping that, unlike Ricardo Lopez, with us having more social media, more technology, us being more conscious as boxing fans, Roman Gonzalez should be getting more credit, and I believe that he's gonna make the fights that people want to see, whether it's against Inoue or Yamanaka or maybe a rematch versus Estrada. Those are the fights he's got to make. Now, Roman Gonzalez was a guy that, like I said, he came from poverty. This is a guy, when we talk about Roman Gonzalez, there was no real, there was a boxing gym, but coming up as a kid, we're talking about a guy that, comes from third world poverty, a guy that would fill a milk bag up with sand, okay? A milk bag up with sand, hang it from the guava tree in his backyard, and that would be his damn punching bag. That'd be his punching bag. That's how Roman Gonzalez started boxing. And then, you know, I mean, you look at Andre Ward, you look at Floyd Mayweather, you look at all these guys who get all this praise, who are supposed to be these guys that we should be thankful that we're seeing them fight. And, you know, they only fight, you know, Andre Ward only fought, you know, he fought once this year, once last year, and he had a long layoff. He had 2 year layoff, a year and a half layoff. It was a long layoff. Floyd's had, you know, his periods of inactivity, 19-month layoffs, 18-month layoffs. So we're so quick to praise those guys, but a guy like Roman Gonzalez, who had to fight his way out of poverty, who every year, basically since every year, excluding I believe 2010 or 2011, he fought 2 times one of those years. Every year since he became a world champion, he has fought 3 to 4 times a year. Every single year. Activity, whether it's against bums, journeymen, pound-for-pound fighters, top 10 guys, it doesn't matter. Roman Gonzalez was fighting 3 to 4 times a year, and that's doing it the honest way. That's doing it the way it's supposed to be done. Activity, not talking about who you're gonna fight, who you eye. He's just going out there and he's just doing it, and you gotta respect that. So it really pisses me off. And now we're gonna get into the Dante's Box Nation, because there was a video he put out quite some time ago, and it was about Roman Gonzalez and him fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux and how he's never gonna be the face of boxing and all this nonsense. He made a couple of statements that proves that he's either ignorant to Roman Gonzalez, he doesn't like Roman Gonzalez. I mean, something's wrong. He either doesn't know much about Roman Gonzalez, or doesn't know, or just doesn't like him, and he's trying to push the agenda of, you know, Andre Ward and Floyd Mayweather. So I'm gonna actually quote you guys. I'm gonna quote to you some of the things from this video. All right, and it's this video about, if you guys want to look at it for yourself. I'm not gonna post a link in the description, okay? Because this is True School Sports. It's not Dante's Box Nation. You know, I'm gonna tell you guys what the video is. You can go look at it for yourself. You can go on Dante's channel, go into the search bar, and just type in Roman Gonzalez and Rigondeaux, and you should be able to find it. It's basically a picture of him and Guillermo Rigondeaux, and it's about him fighting Guillermo Rigondeaux. So I'm gonna quote to you a couple of things he said in this video, and then I'm gonna combat what he said. So anybody who may be watching this video who subscribe to his channel, send this part to him. So bullet point number 1, quote number 1, Dante says this about Roman Gonzalez. He says, I quote, "He's in a situation where he has no other Roman Gonzalez to face." Now, what he means by that is he doesn't have another guy in his weight class. He's Muhammad Ali, but there's no Sonny Liston. He's Pernell Whitaker, but there's no Julio Cesar Chavez. There's no real challenge for Roman Gonzalez. He's Roberto Duran, but there's no Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, things of that magnitude. He might not have. I mean, Roman Gonzalez does have a guy. Okay, I already said his name, Juan Francisco Estrada. Now, I'm sick of people just sleeping on Estrada. Estrada is a fringe pound-for-pound fighter. He's sure as hell a pound-for-pound talent. You know, you look at what he's been able to accomplish, beating solid guys in his weight class. I mentioned Giovanni Segura, Brian Valoria. And that's coming up. He's 25. Estrada just entering his prime. He already gave Roman Gonzalez a very, very tough fight. And there's a lot of people out there, a lot of hardcore boxing fans out there that think that Estrada will beat Gonzalez in a rematch. And I want to see that fight. And a lot of people want to see that fight. So clearly you have not done your research on the flyweight division, Mr. Dante Williams, because Roman Gonzalez does have someone in his division to face, and that's Estrada. And if he doesn't want to fight somebody in his division, then he can go fight Inoue or Yamanaka, guys that people think could. I've heard people say that they think those Japanese guys could ice Roman Gonzalez. So there are guys for him to fight. Now, second quote, bullet point number 2. I quote, "If you're constantly fighting outside of the USA against champions nobody has ever heard of outside diehard fans, then there's no way you can become the face of boxing." And Mr. Dante, you are right. There is no way Roman Gonzalez can become the face of boxing doing things of that manner, which is why, if you've noticed, his last 2 fights have been in America. They built him up properly, made sure that he was the goods before they put him in America on American television. Okay, he fought Sosa in his HBO debut, spanked Sosa. Fought Valoria at MSG, destroyed Valoria. Now they're going to continue to build him up. He's fighting again in LA. Once more on a Golovkin undercard, a fight that people are going to watch, you know, and they're going to come to watch him as well. So he's now being built up in America, and I think, you know, as time progresses, people are going to take a liking to Chocolatito because he's an exciting fighter. So do I think he's going to become the face of boxing? No. But what I do think he is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world right now. Not Andre Ward, okay? Because Andre Ward has not done anything to warrant that spot. I mean, let's camp out on Andre Ward for a second. Let's camp out on Andre Ward because I've heard a multitude of boxing channels, and I haven't said anything about it because I do like Andre Ward. He's a good guy. He's a talented fighter. But let's talk the facts for a second. Andre Ward, prior to the Super 6 tournament, which everybody just loves to bring up, came out and said that he would fight Lucien Boutte, that the winner of the Super 6 should fight Lucien Boutte. He wound up winning the Super 6. He ultimately didn't fight Boutte. And then, you know, Boutte was a guy who was an IBF champion at that time, had multiple title defenses, a guy that, you know, was more than a worthy opponent for Andre Ward. And what did Andre Ward say? Andre Ward came out and he said that he believes that Boutte needs to beat somebody first. That he wants to build up a fight with Boutte, and then eventually he never fought Boutte, and he wound up fighting the likes of I believe it was Edwin Rodriguez in a weight drain, Chad Dawson. Now, while he was doing that, while he was fighting those guys, he also ducked Andre Dirrell. Now, any of you guys who may know about boxing, you guys know that Andre Dirrell fought Carl Froch in the Super 6. That's the guy who beat Dirrell. Froch beat Dirrell to get to Ward. Now, go watch the fight. There's videos on YouTube of it. Dirrell destroyed Carl Froch. That was one of the worst robberies of that year. And I know there's some low blows later in the fight, but Dirrell, you know, hand speed, ring generalship, timing, counter punching, he beat Carl Froch. And he didn't get the decision. The fight was in England. We knew that he wasn't going to get the decision. But why didn't Ward ever come out and fight Dirrell? A guy that at that time was a bigger puncher than he is now. His knockout percentage was higher than it is now, and right now it's like at 62%. So Dirrell would have been a great matchup. You know, hand speed, boxing ability, foot speed, timing. That would have, fighting those two guys would have cemented Andre Ward as the guy at 168. But he is not the guy at 168 because if you look at the guys he beat in the Super 6, he beat Alan Green, Mikhail Kessler, Carl Froch, and I believe Sakio Bika. I believe those are the 4 guys he beat. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I mean, come on. You mean to tell me that Andre Dirrell and Lucien Boutte at that particular time, both guys who were rated top 5 super middleweights at that time, weren't better than Kessler and Bika and Alan Green and hell, even a weight drain Chad Dawson? You mean to tell me those guys aren't better than those guys I named you? You're out of your mind. So Andre Ward, you can't be a pound for pound best fighter in the world. You can't even be a pound for pound top 10 fighter in the world for something you did 4 years ago. Okay, he's not a top 10 pound for pound fighter. He's got to fight his way back up like any other fighter does. And you know, he fought Barrera and Paul Smith, so that's really nothing to write home about. You know, beat Kovalev, and I'll consider #1 pound for pound. But until then, shut up. So, but anyway, I lost my train of thought talking about Ward. So yeah, that was bullet point number 2. So bullet point number 3, quote number 3. It's actually a question he asked. I wrote this down. He said, "How does Roman Gonzalez become the pound for pound king, not the casual fan's favorite pound-for-pound king?" Now, I watched that video very closely. I listened to every little word you said, Dante. And Roman Gonzalez, you said multiple times in that video, or at least one time in that video, you said that Roman Gonzalez, nobody knows who he is, that more people know who Guillermo Rigondeaux is than Roman Gonzalez. So if Roman Gonzalez isn't known by anybody and he's less known than Rigondeaux, how can he be the casual fans' pound-for-pound king? I mean, come on, Dante. You're sticking your foot in your own mouth, man. So, I mean, just wanted to touch on that one real quick. Then the next quote, he says, Oh, actually, he starts talking about. He says this. He basically starts talking about Manny Pacquiao. He says Manny Pacquiao started his career at flyweight, and that Roman has to be like Manny and move up all these weight classes but he fails to realize, and he fails to mention throughout the whole course of this nearly 20-minute video, fails to mention that Roman Gonzalez didn't come into boxing as a flyweight. He came into boxing as a minimum weight, 105 pounds, and flyweight is his third weight class. His third weight class that he's won a title in. Pacquiao came in as a flyweight, so Pacquiao had, he had time to move up. I mean, Gonzalez, we don't know how he's gonna move up. We don't, and can he move up to 118 and fight a guy like Rigondeaux? It's possible, but he's got guys to fry at 115 before he even gets to that point. So, there's that. Then he continues going on again. Now, this is a quote that I wrote down verbatim. He said, if Manny and Floyd can move up to 112 from 112 to 147, then it's possible for Roman to move from 115 to 118. Now, let's address the second part of that quote. Roman Gonzalez has never fought at 115, and Dante says this a bunch of times in his video. Roman never fought at 115. Okay, so how is he going to move to 118 if he never fought at 115? I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. So let him move up from 112 to 115, and then we'll see if he can move to 118. Let's see how his body reacts then, because everybody's body's different. So there's that. And not just that, Floyd started off as a lightweight. But Dante tried to spin the whole video a certain way, and he said that Floyd was a flyweight when he was an amateur. Well, Floyd wasn't a freaking amateur when he turned pro. That's why he's a pro. He turned pro, he was a lightweight. He was a 130-pounder, basically, or at least when he won his first world title. So when he won his first world title, he was like 126 or 130, whatever he was, and that's what it is, 130. It was 130. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. That quote was ridiculous. Then, okay, so I mentioned Brian Viloria earlier. This is what Dante said. He said, he won't become a pound-for-pound king beating a guy like Brian Viloria, end quote. Now, like I said earlier, Brian Viloria, a multiple-time world champion, a guy that's outside of Gonzalez, outside of Estrada, probably the best flyweight in the world. Okay, a guy that from 2010 to 2015, prior to his fight with Roman Gonzalez, was 10-1 in his last 11 fights with 7 knockouts. Okay? And his only loss was to Estrada. So the only guys he's really ever lost to in the last 5 years have been the 2 best fighters in his weight class. So you can't take that away from Viloria. He's a good fighter. You do your homework, Dante. Then he goes on to talk about I believe it was when just before he fought Edgar Sosa, he had that 2-fight period where he fought Valentin Leon and this other guy. I know one of them had like 29 losses, but anyway. Those are stay busy fights until Roman got the big fight. And he says this. He says, it's so easy to expose the hypocrisy in boxing. And he's talking about Roman Gonzalez fighting this guy, 29 losses or whatever, and how Floyd Mayweather got basically shafted and criticized for fighting a guy like Andre Berto. Now, let's get a couple of things straight. Floyd Mayweather, when he fought Andre Berto, was an established star, had so much control in boxing, can fight basically whoever he wanted. He was the guy that everybody was fighting. When Gonzalez fought the guy with 29 losses, Gonzalez hadn't even fought in America yet. So Gonzalez didn't have the clout, nor did he have the pull to handpick his opponents like Floyd. Okay, so that's two different scenarios. On top of that, I mean, Floyd Mayweather put the Andre Berto fight on pay-per-view. Now, had Mayweather done what initially was rumored to have been done, which is basically put the Andre Berto fight on free TV, so people who can't afford pay-per-view that want to watch his fights can watch him, and he can actually do boxing a favor by such a big name and a guy who's done a lot for the sport as far as popularity goes, fighting on free TV. That would have been big, but no, he put it on pay-per-view, and he put it on pay-per-view against a guy that really was once a promising prospect, but at that point in time, last year in September, it was a shot fighter, and everybody knew that Mayweather was going to outbox Berto. So I see the hypocrisy in Mayweather just fighting cans and getting credit for it, but Roman Gonzalez clears nearly half of his weight class, and nobody says a word about it. clears nearly half of his weight class, has defended his title at least 3 times in every weight class before he's moved up. But you guys give him all the flack in the world. So it is what it is. And on top of that, back to Andre Ward, because I know he loves Andre Ward. Andre Ward, really, if we're honest, should be fighting Kovalev next. He should be fighting Kovalev next. I said I wouldn't mind him having a tune-up in my post-fight review video. And, if he wants to have a tune-up, cool. But to be honest, he should be fighting Kovalev next because Kovalev, he had 2 tune-ups. Ward had 2 tune-ups. He fought freaking Paul Smith. He was like 172 on fight night. And then he fought just as now against Barrera at, light heavyweight, which is his official debut. So he had 2 tune-ups, and he's in the 3rd tune-up. So how many tune-ups he needs before he gets his behind spank box Arya Kovalev? It's whatever. Then he closed out his video and basically compared, he compared what Andre this to me, and listen, I respect Dante's grind. I'm gonna make that very clear. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I respect Dante's grind. He gets a lot of good interviews. He's had some good footage. I enjoyed the All Access pieces he did with Sean Porter. But some of the things he says are just way out of line. And this, along with when he said, one time he said that Floyd Mayweather was better than Muhammad Ali, which is a joke, a complete joke. And if you think that, you need to have your brain scanned. He said that he compared what Andre Ward and Floyd Mayweather went through, basically, or I think it was just Andre Ward, but it was one of those two. Andre Ward, I'm going to stick with Andre Ward. He said Andre Ward, basically being a guy who is, a black fighter, a guy who, has beaten some good competition, but doesn't get the credit he deserves, and people are kind of, hating on him for it. But he just keeps winning and smiling in everybody's face, and he likens that. He likens what Andre Ward is doing right now. He likens what Andre Ward is doing right now, okay? And he compares it to Jack Johnson back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Jack Johnson being, a guy that was a pioneer for black fighters in boxing, okay? His situation is so different. The climate of America was so different. Just him being a guy that had to go through so much racism and like I'm not saying Andre Ward doesn't go through his own fair share of racism, but what I'm saying is Jack Johnson really went through that racism. I'm talking about like people we probably would be threatening to lynch him and stuff. If he won his fights, a lot of death threats. He had a lot of things working against him in those days that Andre Ward nor Floyd could never even fathom. And to compare Jack Johnson in any regard, as far as situation goes, to Floyd Mayweather or Andre Ward is just ludicrous. And then, as far as back to his hypocrisy and boxing statement, but I went to his, I listened to part of his Andre Ward Sullivan Barrera post-fight review video, and he said that Sullivan Barrera is like this dominant light heavyweight with a really good Cuban amateur pedigree, and that Ward just made it look so easy, and that he thinks Barrera is no joke, and Barrera could beat some of these top light heavyweights. And I just thought, what is this guy on? Because Andre Ward, although he had a good performance, and Barrera, I know Barrera, people are going to say, well, Barrera was the #1 mandatory for Kovalev. You don't know what you're talking about, BT. Well, you're right. He was the #1 mandatory for Kovalev's belt, but at the same time, let's think for a second. What is Sullivan Barrera at this point in his career? He's like, what, 33 years old? And he only has 17 professional fights. Prior to the Andre Ward fight, his most skilled opponent he's ever been in the ring with was Carl Marat. And Carl Marat, he also fought Bernard Hopkins. That's what he's most known for outside of fighting Barrera. Marat is a C-level guy, really. And then if you want to throw in a Jeff Lacey, a guy who was once a top light heavyweight, but when Barrera fought him, a shot fighter, a faded version of himself. And I just don't. I think you got to be on something if you think that Sullivan Barrera can beat the likes of Kovalev, who I've heard a couple of channels say that they think that Kovalev's next fight should be against Barrera, which I wouldn't mind. Kovalev would ice him. But Kovalev, Arthur Beterbiev, Fonfara, hell, even Adonis Stevenson could probably beat, Sullivan Barrera. I wouldn't put it past him. But I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, could Sullivan Barrera even beat a? Let's be honest with ourselves. Could you really think that Sullivan Barrera could even beat a guy like Isaac Chilemba? Or hell, let's go outside the top 10 for a second, because we'll talk about a guy who is also an older fighter, a guy who's also who is an action fighter, who can't get a big fight but is under the top rank banner. Look at a guy like Shawnee Monahan. Look at Shawnee Monahan, a guy that is an all-action fighter, gets knockouts left and right. He's begging for a big fight, and he's been, fighting on the cards in New York, on the undercards and stuff. And he wants the Kovalevs and the Fonfara. He told me himself he wants to have a trilogy with Fonfara. Could Barrera even get through a guy like Shawnee Monahan? Monahan's a good fighter. I'm not taking nothing away from Shawnee Monahan. I like Shawnee Monahan. He's a nice guy, very gracious with his time with us in the media in New York. So I always appreciate Shawnee Monahan. But at this point in his career, he's not ranked a top 10 light heavyweight. So could Barrera even get through Shawnee Monahan? We don't know that. So what I'm saying is, if he's never even beat a B-level guy, how the hell do you expect him to beat A-level guys like a Kovalev, guys with A-level potential like Beterbiev, guys who are B to upper B plus talents and Fonfara? I mean, come on, let's use our brains here. Now, I mean, that's really all I gotta say. I know I kind of got really off track, but yeah, man, Roman Gonzalez is the pound-for-pound fighter for a lot of reasons, man. He's beat lineal champions, beat guys who have made a lot of. He's beat true champions. It's one thing to beat guys for vacant belts, because we've seen Adrian Broner do that a multitude of times. But it's another thing to go in there, especially if you go into somebody's backyard. You're not in Nicaragua. You're fighting on the other side of the world in Japan. He's going in there. He's not just beating these guys. He's not just winning by split decision. He's dominated. He dominated Ikiri Agashi, who was the lineal champion. He dominated Brian Valoria, who was a top 5 fighter. He dominated Edgar Sosa, who to this day is still a number 6 ranked flyweight. And he did it the honest way, fighting 3 to 4 times a year. No big time promoter, no TV network, no HBO, no Showtime. He had to earn his stripes. He's one of the fighters. A lot of you guys out there say that you want fighters to really earn their stripes in boxing. Roman Gonzalez is one of those guys that's earned his stripes in boxing. Never lost a fight, 132-0 and counting. So the Roman Empire will continue. The Roman Empire will continue. Roman Gonzalez, pound for pound, the best fighter in the world. If he's able, for me, I think that the next step for him is he's got to take on one of these Japanese dudes, whether it's Yamanaka, whether it's Inoue. He's got to fight one of those two guys, because those guys, Yamanaka being on the pound for pound list, and Inoue, people think he's going to be on the pound for pound list one day. These are guys that he has to fight around his weight. If he can fight Rigondeaux, I say, if he can fight Rigondeaux and his body's up for it, Rigondeaux's up for it, the money's good, and the fighters aren't getting screwed, I say go for it. Go for the gusto, Roman. But so, I mean, name me a fighter right now who's cleared out more of his weight class than Roman. There isn't. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who believe Roman is the best fighter in the world, and I'm definitely one of those guys. I really wish that people would understand that this guy had to overcome a lot to get to this point. He lost his trainer in 2009. Imagine that. Like imagine that. You win your first world title. You have maybe 2 or 3 fights with your trainer, your mentor, your father figure in the sport of boxing, and you don't even have that much time to enjoy the success with him. Alexis Arguello dies in 2009 after Roman Gonzalez wins the title in 2008. So that had to take a toll on him mentally. And a lot of lesser fighters, like we've seen in the past, mentally, like Mike Tyson, who love Mike Tyson. I have a picture of him right over there on my wall. Love Mike Tyson, but he was never the same fighter when Customato passed. Roman Gonzalez got better with time, and it looked like when you look at Roman Gonzalez, you can kind of see Alexis Arguello in him, and you can see that he internalized whatever Arguello taught him. Whatever Arguello was teaching him, whether it was how Arguello used to cut off the ring, or how Arguello used to get under punches and slip them and throw the hooks. Roman loves to throw that hook to the body like Arguello did. And, he got better with time, and he's right now at that point in his career where he's trying to do what Arguello never accomplished, which was win a world title in a fourth weight class. Arguello failed 2 times against Aaron Pryor, and people want to see Roman make that jump from 112 to 115. So we're gonna see what's next for Roman Gonzalez. But yeah, man, he's the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world, and you guys shouldn't act like he doesn't exist, because he says he's done it the honest way. He's beat good fighters. He beat one really, really good fighter in Francisco Estrada. Maybe Estrada might down the road might go down. He might go down as a great fighter. And if Roman Gonzalez is able to beat Estrada for a second time, just he'll be pound for pound for a while, because the guy has done everything you want a champion to do. He's ducked nobody. And he hasn't been coddled, nor has he been spoiled like some of the American champions we have, like Mayweather, like Andre Ward, like Broner. And I'm not saying this to hate. I'm speaking the facts. I'm speaking the facts. So y'all can say what you want, but this guy's fought 3 to 4 times every single year since he became world champion, and we've seen guys win a world title, win their first world title, and all of a sudden they think they're the A side and they fight 1 time a year, and that's just not how it is. But here you have Roman Gonzalez, a guy who's humble outside the ring, fighting for his country, much like Pacquiao in a way. Comes when he's in the ring, he's giving you what boxing should be. And I know I've heard, shout out to my man DC Mike TV. Shout out to my man DC Mike. He had a couple of interviews with Lamont Peterson's brother, Anthony Peterson, who I believe fought on the undercard of Adrian Broner, actually Theophane fight. He had a multitude of interviews with him. I think it was either him or... Yeah, it was him. It was him, because Anthony Peterson said a quote that I believe, that I say all the time, and I believe it's very relevant when talking about Roman Gonzalez, and it's by none other than George Foreman. George Foreman once said, "Boxing is like jazz. The better you do it, the less they appreciate it." And that's the quote that applies to Roman Gonzalez, because here he is, just knocking dudes out left and right. It's 38 knockouts in 44 fights, 10 knockouts in a row. And not all of those knockouts are against bums. Some of those knockouts are against guys who are in the top 10, top 5, top 3 of his division, and people are not giving him the credit he deserves. So that's what it is, man. If I use Mayweather and Ward as examples of people who get advantages, people who get special treatment. Roman hasn't had special treatment. You can say, yeah, some of his opponents have been overmatched, but like I said, he's beat lineal champions. He's beat guys who have made 8, 5, 3 world title defenses. He's knocked out. I mean, how many times in this video just now did I just tell you guys that Roman knocked out a guy who's never been knocked out before? I mean, he did that so many times. He knocked out guys who never knocked out. That's really hard to do. So let me know what you guys think. Roman Gonzalez, is he the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world? If he's not, and you believe it's Andre Ward or Floyd Mayweather, leave it in the comments down below. Take the time to subscribe. You could love me or you could hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys.